Hello and welcome to another Capital Ideas. I'm Sandy Bahan and our guest this week is Trish Weedn. Welcome back.
Oh, thank you. I enjoy being here with you, Sandy.
Good. You're the senator from Senate District 15, correct?
Yes. Yes.
And you're just re-elected last fall to your third term.
Yes.
9th year. I thought we might start off by talking a little bit about last fall's election and how it might in some way be different from the previous 2 or 3 you've been through.
Well, I think I believe it's the hardest for me, and maybe, now that might be my age, I'm just not for sure, you know. I kind of think, well, now what makes this one different than 4 years ago? You know, it was a very trying race this year, and I think the things that I think concerned me the most was the issues out there, whether how I felt about an issue or how I voted on a specific issue was not really brought through as what really happened. And I think the concerns of making sure that everything that is said and done in an election is true and above board and honest.
Do you think that that's getting worse, or is that unique to this election? Or
I don't know. I think because you could take a particular election, whether it be a state election or a congressional district or a legislative district or a county district, and each one I think is separate. It depends on the individuals running.
Okay, but you ended up with a considerable percentage, as I remember. Like
yes.
70 something?
Well, in the total now, I had almost 80% in the primary, and then at the end I had 60.
Then
60,
you must
40.
Be doing something
yes,
right.
Yes. Very happy, very appreciative of everyone in my district, and thank you so much for all the support you've given me in my district.
As you went around the district and you did get a chance to talk about issues, what seemed to be on most people's minds?
I think the one issue that my opponent in the general election brought out was the crime issue because of the Lamont Fields issue in August, where you know, soft on crime and issues such as that, and the early release program that the majority of legislators a couple of 3 years ago voted, and because of the very issue that we were facing 3 years ago was the overcrowding. And again, we still have that same issue right now. I think the Board of Corrections is even stating the last couple of days that, you know, we're to the point we can't take any more prisoners. We cannot take anybody else. We're at almost 100% or over 100% population. We are moving them to Texas about as fast as we can. We moved hundreds this week. I've had a number of phone calls from families that on that very issue because their families now are in Texas, 6-7 hour drive from where they live, and when they specifically went to see their family members, whether it be a child, grandchild, nephew, uncle, whoever, very immediate family that now is very upset because without any notice, without any questions, they just upped and moved them overnight. And now the possibility of them seeing them, you know, is a concern of the family members. But again, we have to address the issue of overcrowding, and it's at a point that it's devastating to our state, and because there's no one getting out.
Okay, let's talk about that for just a moment. There was a thing in the paper this morning that the headline seemed to imply some amazement that in fact many prisoners do the time. They spend the time in prison that they're supposed to spend, and yet they come out and make the exact same mistake again, as if, well, this isn't working, and like it ought to work. I mean, we've punished them, we've put them in prison. What's wrong with the system?
I think the system is we're putting people in prison that we're mad at and not what more than. Now, the violent criminals, absolutely, you put them behind bars. We're looking at a truth in sentencing bills, which means that if you're convicted and you get 50 years, you will spend 85% of that 50 years in prison. There's not an early release, you don't do good time, you don't do anything. If you're convicted of a crime, you're going to spend at least 85% of that time in prison. We have got to look at how to try to solve these problems before it gets to this point. We are putting people in prison that have nonviolent crimes. There's no violence to it at all. They're on drugs primarily. Drunk driving, alcohol and drugs are a big issue. Hot checks, issues such as that. We have got to address treatment. We do have treatment programs in the prison, but it takes lots of money. But what we do is we put them in prison, costing $14,000 to $15,000 a year average, less on this type of criminals, because now they're in work release programs, they're in community programs. But we need more of those. We need to place true nonviolent criminals in prison. And with the Lamont Fields issue, Lamont Fields was serving a crime that was nonviolent. He was a juvenile when he had committed the violent crimes. He had plea bargained out at that time, and they had worked on that issue many years ago as a juvenile. And then, but what he was actually serving time for at the time was a nonviolent crime. He did fit that early release. I agree. There are probably many, many people that doesn't need to be out on an early release. But we have got to address the nonviolent crimes differently.
So there's some attempts to recodify the laws, correct?
Yes.
In addition
and the truth
to
in sentencing. We're going to
sentencing.
have to address the crime that is committed, what kind of punishment.
Okay, let's go to the front end here. You're looking at for example, the situation that happened in Weber's Falls this week, where the 15-year-old boy supposedly stabbed the 17-year-old boy to death. Those kinds of crimes seem to be on the increase, the kind of violent crime among the juveniles. And in the past, you're talking about someone like a Lamont Fields who plea bargained out and had violent crimes in his past, but had served as a juvenile, and that is erased when they're 19 and they start clean. We need to readdress how we look at the younger population, and what they obviously are angry. They're angry at whatever they're angry
at the world. They're angry at everything, and why, I can't tell you exactly, other than, you know, we have 51% of the divorce, our divorce rate is 51% in Oklahoma. A lot of people doesn't understand why, doesn't understand. There are so many children raised right now, young people raised in the past and in the future right now, that are in single-parent families. Single parents are trying their best, whether it be man or woman, you know, that is the custodial parent. They're just, I can't. I wished I knew the answer. If I knew the answer, we could fix it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of problems out there.
You can't just throw money at them.
No, you can't throw money at it. But I do believe with all of my heart, prevention is the key. Early education, especially in homes that are troubled, that have, and be the best homes in the world. But when two people cannot live together any longer, the children are the ones that suffer. We know that. The children are the ones that suffer that divorce even more so than the parents. And I will tell you, I'm very excited about what is happening in my district as far as Garvin and McLean and Cleveland counties, is now that the courts are ordering education for parents before the divorce is finalized and before the divorce is approved by the judge in the court system, is that these parents are going to have to go through some kind of training and to see. They need to see exactly how this divorce is affecting their children. And I appreciate that so much.
Does this kind of program come from the judges?
Yes. Okay. Well, it's something that the judges are now doing, especially in this district.
Why here? I mean, why are the judges just? Are we lucky enough to have judges that are more sensitive and socially aware?
And I can't really say how many counties. I couldn't honestly say how many counties that does not already happen in, or that is happening now, or is added this year. I know it's been an issue in some of the counties in the past that's been part of the program and part of the court system, but right now it's getting even more so, and right here in Cleveland County it is an issue that right now that they're really pushing in Cleveland County, which I'm thrilled.
Okay, let's change direction here a little bit and talk for a moment about charter schools. I don't know if the Senate has had the charter schools bill yet or not.
They have addressed it, I believe, in the Education Committee, which I'm not on. I'm a chair of a committee the same time Education meets on Mondays. But it is an issue that we're going to continually see. It did, I believe, get out of committee. It is still alive and well and moving through the process. I'm almost sure that the title's off of it, which means that it will go to conference, and we will debate this issue until May.
Let's say, for example, that the bill were to pass, and essentially Norman Public Schools will be given permission to create charter schools. Exactly what are we talking about?
Well, in my opinion, and of course I have not actually read the bill, I do not know what kind of amendments they made in committee, but as I understand it, it will be a school in which that it will be kind of well, I don't want to use the word, it's going to be something that I feel may eventually could go into a private entity in the future, and like a private school. But right now we're looking at creating a school that is maybe different. It will have different curriculum, maybe. It would have different hours. It could be a 12-month school, year-round school, totally different than what we are looking at now, say, in the Norman Public School System.
How is it different from an alternative school?
Well, again, we have all types of alternative schools in different districts. Every school district addresses an alternative school differently, depending on the students that attend. Many are just at night. Many are where the students can work during the day. You know, I mean, that would be totally different. I can't compare it to an alternative school because in my district, the alternative schools are primarily at night. Some are.
And they're primarily for kids that have trouble being successful?
Yes, troubled students.
Okay.
Troubled students that doesn't fit the classroom.
But I guess my question would be, why can't you use that alternative school legislation?
You could.
For, you know, what you're talking about in terms of charter schools?
I think this is an issue that Sandy Garrett and the governor and Governor Keating has looked at and is trying to support and trying to get people talking about, and truly what it will mean for this district the way it's written right now. I couldn't really go into detail until I actually read the bill. I know that there is a concern what will happen to the teachers that are now in the systems now. Will they still have the same benefits? Will they still be in public education? Will they still continue to have the same type of benefits and pay and structure that they have now? And at this point, I cannot tell you how they're addressing that. My concern is eventually it could lead into a private entity.
Okay, another question that's a little bit confusing for me. I was under the impression that at the time of 1017 or shortly thereafter, there was legislation passed that allowed a school district, like I'm thinking Ponca City or Shawnee or someplace like that, to go to 4-day school weeks, to go to year-round schools. Now, how is that different from a charter school?
That's what I'm saying. It could possibly be addressed now. They have to get the approval of the Education Board of Education, or the Education Committee, I guess, the state board, and they'd have to get that. And there's schools right here that go 4-day a week in this county, and there are schools that do attend 12 months a year and have a different break. So that is an option. I don't think any differently. It was addressed in 1017, and to me that could be a charter school.
Okay.
So.
It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Oh yes,
with
it
all
will.
of this, and
in
see
the next
exactly what they really mean
by
charter school.
Right.
All right, real quickly before we bring the kids out, the past 3 or 4 weeks, what you have been basically doing is committee work. Is that correct? Yes. And trying to decide what bills are actually going to come out of committee and go to the floor to be addressed by the whole body. Has anything come out of committee that surprises you or scares you?
Oh my goodness. Well, again, I think all of these issues, the thing that concerns me is, and I did vote for it, it has already passed the floor because of a fast track, what we call, and it is, again, the proposal of the Senate on the highway project, and I think that maybe the students will ask me about that. I don't want to go into detail. But that issue is something that's, that is going to be addressed, and we'll be hearing a lot about between now and May. I think the time limit is the shortened sessions has given us 3 weeks, and of course I meet on Monday at 9 in the morning, and because of the session not beginning and the governor stayed the state till noon on Monday, I was only allowed to meet two different times. And the shortened sessions put so much constraint, and in my opinion, and just strictly looking at my issues, is I have a committee meeting every day, some 2 and 3 a day, because wildlife doesn't meet on a specific day and tourism doesn't meet on a specific day, so we meet in between on those, plus the subcommittee of appropriations. And I think what we're dealing with now is the pace and there's so many bills to look at, and being able to read those bills and be prepared, and that's hard sometimes.
So you really have to trust the lobbyists and the people who
Well, you have to trust primarily the author of the bill.
The author of the bill.
And then, of course, the lobbyists that have a lot of knowledge of why we're changing this and doing this. And, of course, you know the ones that you really trust and know. And you get to know those individuals in 8 years, and when they say something, that's the way it is.
Now, Wallace Collins made the comment that he was trying to read every bill, and I thought, there's no way.
No way.
No way.
No way. Especially when you chair committees and you're in subcommittees and you're on all these. You have to trust the authors of the bill to tell you exactly what this bill's going to do, how it's going to change, and like they do me. You know, they have to trust in me when I bring forth a bill, and I have to trust them. But you learn real quickly the ones that will tell you, and they do. The senators, if there were ever a point where you couldn't trust a legislator or a lobbyist, you'd just be in trouble. You wouldn't be trusted. But
Okay.
that's not the case.
Okay, we'll be back in just a moment with two students from Central Mid High School. We're back with two students from Central Mid High School, and our student guests this week are Tara Ratliff and Amy Harwell. And Amy, you get the honor of asking the first question.
Okay. How did you get started in politics?
I was excited in politics. My dad was pretty involved in politics in Potawatomi County as I was growing up. Very interested in who was running for county races and congressional races. But when I was 19 years old, I was employed in the county treasurer's office in McLean County, and was there 8 years, and was very involved in the Democrat Party of McLean County because my boss was, and I'd go with her, and most of us would go with her, and got involved in that. And I thought, oh, how exciting it was to get to go to a meeting or have a speaker come in to a monthly meeting, and they were someone running for office, state office or legislature or county or something. And I was so excited with that, to think, golly, I got to know these people and got to know who they really were, and got to know a little bit about them, and then I could vote for them, you know. It was just real thrilling. So that's how I got excited about it, and then just continually kept going to meetings and got involved in the district then and state conventions, and just really loved it. Being in county government where my boss was elected, and then I had the opportunity after working in the treasurer's office 8 years to run for county assessor in 1977, and ran and won the race and was assessor 10 years. But that's how I kind of got involved.
Tara?
So how many years has it been that you've been involved in politics?
Well, since, 26 years now. Pretty much. I started when I was 19 and involved and worked in the courthouse, but been elected 18 years, going on 19 years now.
What do you think has been your biggest contribution to Oklahoma?
I guess my concern and my support for education. I think education is the key. And not because I'm here today. I've said that many, many times. I think that is the key to our future, and is to educate young people as much as we can, provide the greatest education possible for that individual to have that opportunity to take it upon themselves to get the best education they can. And then I guess personally what I worked on very, very hard is public transportation for the elderly and for people that are not able to drive and to stay home longer. And what we've been able to do in the past 5 years is to expand transit, and especially in the rural counties and the counties where they had no public transportation, and to allow people to stay home and not go into nursing homes once they get at the age that they need to go to the grocery store, they need to go to the doctors, but they have no transportation. They're not able to drive. they're not able to, maybe for their sight or just their frail bodies or whatever, or just the fear of driving when they get a certain age. And just making that opportunity available to people in that situation or disabled.
What is the toughest bill that you've ever passed or helped to pass?
I think the funding for public transportation, but the toughest bill was House Bill 1017 in 1990 when we passed that. It was a very tough issue. It was to raise taxes. It was an issue where it was divided, I think, in my district overall. In many ways, people knew we needed to do something in education and to make it better. And always, and I don't mean that dollars is always the issue, but you have to have funding to make sure that the students are provided the supplies and the equipment and the books, the computers now, and of course to get the best teachers that we can and to give them a decent salary. I think that's the issue.
Okay, what is your view on the death penalty?
I believe in the death penalty.
Okay.
Corporal punishment. I believe that an individual that takes a life, and that if a jury decides that a person should be, should be executed, that should be carried out. I believe if they take a life, that they, I believe that a person can be forgiven, but I believe that that person, if that's what the jury decides, that's what needs to be done.
Okay. So what are your views on abortion?
I am pro-life. I'm pro-life. I believe that the only time that abortion should be considered is the life and death of the mother, incest, and rape. But as far as protection of a unborn child, that I believe that it's an issue. It amazes me that if an individual is pregnant and the baby dies in a car wreck, that you can get that person that hits that individual, if it's a negligent or maybe DUI, drunk while driving, that you can charge that person with 2 deaths. It amazes me how it can be different. But I am pro-life.
Okay, is there going to be more money for public transportation?
Well, I'm trying to, and what that money does, the state dollars that we put into public transit is matched with federal dollars. The last couple of years, they have cut federal funding for public transportation a tremendous amount. So we're trying to make that difference up through state dollars so that we will not lose the routes and the transportation that we presently have. That's been an issue, especially in Oklahoma City and Norman. That's been an issue in Norman specifically, that they've had to cut routes. It's not because of the state dollars, it's because of the federal cuts that has happened in public transportation. The problem is that through our gasoline tax, that people, when you buy gas at the pumps, we send $32 million to Washington, D.C. for public transportation. That's what Oklahoma sends. And we do not receive but just a very small portion of that back, because the only way that we can get that money back is that we have to have funds here to match with those dollars. But what they're doing in Washington, D.C. is continually cutting that percent of the $32 million that we now get that comes back, that we can even match to get. So it's an issue that we send the money and we need to get it back. We need to get it back for our people, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm asking for at least $500,000 more dollars of state funding that we can match to get some more federal dollars back, and make up the cuts that we were cut last year. But I'm trying to do that, but I won't know till May till the appropriations comes out.
Does it seem to be a priority, though, public transportation in general for the state, or does it seem to be a Tulsa, Norman, Oklahoma City?
Well, that's where the people are. That's where the people are. And people in Oklahoma love their automobiles. and even when they, it's very hard for people that live in Norman to use the buses when they could keep their car at home, use the buses, go to work, come back. And it's just not the mentality of Oklahoma people. And I think you just have to learn to do that, to use the bus. And I think if that was more of the thinking of the people in Oklahoma, even in the metropolitan areas, that it would expand much faster and quicker. But you have buses that have very few riders because people just jump in their car and they go get what they want and they come back because it's easier.
What effect, if any, will the welfare changes that Congress passed last year, what effect will they make on Oklahoma?
Oh, they already are, right now, this month. The bill went into effect November the 1st. What we're seeing right now is the people, what I call is that falls through the crack. And these are the people that are, for whatever reason, they're disabled. They've been hurt on the job, they have cancer, they have a disease, they have a heart disease, and they're not 65 years of age. They have children at home, and the only way they can even continue to get their food stamps is if they're on Social Security disability and they have been approved. What the problem is that it is so hard to get on Social Security disability, even if you are bedfast, you have a disease, and you even have a certain time that the doctors feel like that you have left, you know, because you're so ill, that you cannot now, because of the new law that has went into effect, that you cannot, February the 1st, your food stamps were dropped if you were not trying to get a job and applying for jobs daily, or that you were not going to school. So immediately, those people in that age difference before 65 years of age, their food stamps were cut off. They have children at home, and they're not able to find a job or go to school. Another thing is that, of course, 3 years is the max that anyone can apply for food stamps or for AFDC unless they're going to school. What you're seeing now is that everyone will either have to apply for jobs, get a job, or go to school to receive AFDC. And that's another issue. You have a single parent. Most of the people on AFDC, even though we've had a 14% decrease in the past year of AFDC clients, it's going to be a tremendous change. Each individual family is different. When you have a single parent that has 3, 4, 5 children, well, now we're going to send these babies to daycare while this individual either goes to school or they try to find a job, and most hopefully will just get a minimum wage paying job. So here we go. It's just each individual family is different.
Okay, what are the biggest issues facing the legislator?
I believe the biggest thing right now is the crime issue. We're at 100% capacity. There's no more room for prisoners. No one's getting out on even on parole, probation, nothing. And I've either got to build more prisons, private entities got to build more prisons so that we can contract with them, or we're going to have to send them out of state, continue to do that, because we are expecting 1,500 more prisoners by July the 1st, and there is no room. We are at capacity.
Okay, and we're out of time. Thank you very much for being with us this morning. It's always fun to have you. Hopefully we'll get you back in May and see how things have gone. And
maybe I'll know more about charter schools.
And you passed all 3 of your classes, and life is wonderful.
No, 4. I've got 4.
That's right, 4. Okay. And we'll be back next week with another Capital Ideas.